Remains, Chapter 9. After breakfast, most of the guests checked out in support of Chester and Miss Duval. At least that's what they claimed. I had a feeling some of them had had their fill of ghosts and didn't want to spend another night at Fox Hill. Grandmother watched them leave. So much for ghosts bringing business to the inn, she said. A few minutes later, the Kowalskis joined us on the porch. What on earth was going on last night? Mrs. Kowalski asked. Our TV and radio came on as well as lights. We heard a lot of commotion, too, Mr. Kowalski added. People shouting and running up and down the steps. We came here for peace and quiet, not wild parties. Grandmother sighed. I apologize for the disturbance. It won't happen again. The guests who were responsible are leaving today. It was that strange man with the hearse, wasn't it? Mrs. Kowalski asked. And his bizarre lady friend, her husband shook his head. Crazy as loons, the pair of them, going on and on about ghosts. What a load of hooey. Mrs. Kowalski ran a hand through her short gray hair. Those two should get some exercise and clear their minds. Yoga would help. So would an organic diet. Rackets in hand, the Kowalskis headed for the tennis court, and Grandmother turned to Corey and me. Time to get some exercise yourself, she said. Go clean your rooms. It took us all mornings to sort through the wreckage. It was clear we'd need new clothes, new books, too. The pages of our summer reading books were scattered everywhere. Corey's favorite teddy bear had been torn limb from limb, and his stuffing strewn on the floor. I left Corey weeping over the bear and went outside to retrieve my bureau drawers. While I was gathering what was left of my underwear, I saw Mr. Brewster watching me. Don't expect no pity from me. He spat in the grass and started to walk away. Wait. I hurried over and stepped in front of him. Please tell me about the ghosts. Get out of my way, boy. He tried to step around me, but I blocked him, as though we were playing basketball. Mr. Brewster, I have to know what they want so I can make them go away. For the first time I heard him laugh, a sort of growl combined with a cough. They've been here for you, and they'll be here after you. But what are they? Who are they? The man sighed and wiped his forehead with an old handkerchief. It would have been best if them Cornells had never seen this house, never bought it, never fixed it up. He seemed to be talking more to himself than to me. Some places ought to go to ruin. Let the bricks fall and the grass grow over them. Let it all be forgot and the dead stay dead. With that, he stepped around me and headed towards the inn. I stood where I was, cold despite the sun's heat, and watched him walk away. Then I gathered up the bureau drawers and their ruined contents and carried them back to my room. Just before noon, the service bell rang. Grandmother rose from her chair with a sigh and laid her book aside and headed for the office. Corey and I followed her inside, surrounded by their luggage and gear. Chester and Miss Duval were waiting to settle their bill. Ignoring the couple's greeting, Grandmother sat down at the computer and looked up their account. As the bill was printing, she frowned. I would appreciate your saying nothing about last night's events, she said. Oh, I can't agree to that, ma'am, Chester said. I've already emailed my associates with the details and spoken to my editor at Chronicles of the Dead. This sort of story simply cannot be swept under the rug, Miss Duval added. The public has a right to know. If you mention the name of this inn in a book or a magazine article or anywhere else, Grandmother said, you will hear from my lawyer. But that's censorship, Chester put in. You can't. I can and I will. Grandmother handed him the bill. That will be $377.05, including tax. Chester slapped his credit card down the counter, and Grandmother ran it through the machine. Thank you, she said, and handed the card back. But think of the free publicity, Miss Duval said. I am, Grandmother said. With a shrug, Miss Duval swept out of the inn behind Chester. We watched the ghost hunter get into his hearse and drive away, with the psychic close behind in her VW. I feel better already, Grandmother said. At lunchtime, the nearly empty dining room was so quiet I could hear bees buzzing in the flower boxes at the windows. The Kowalskis had ordered a boxed lunch and were off hiking in the hills, toting binoculars, bird books, cameras, and plenty of sunscreen. Tracy came to our table to refill our glasses. I hear you had a lot of trouble last night. Her hand shook as she spoke, and she spilled a few drops of water. Grandmother watched her daub at the puddle with a corner of her apron. Oh, leave it, she said impatiently. Water won't stain anything. Sorry. Tracy stepped back from the table. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just feel so nervous all the time. Everything makes me jump. Her eyes roved the room, lingering in the corners. We're all a little edgy, Grandmother said. But now that those so-called psychics are gone, I'm hoping things will return to normal. 2 guests are checking in this afternoon and another 3 tomorrow. They asked about bike trails and hiking paths, shopping, historic sites, that sort of thing. Not one of them mentioned an interest in ghosts. Tracy didn't seem to be listening. I keep seeing things out of the corner of my eye, she said in a low voice. But when I look straight at them, they're gone. That's just your imagination working overtime, Grandmother said. Twisting her apron, her face red, Tracy said, I called my mother this morning and told her about all the weird stuff. She said maybe I should come home. Grandmother stared at her. Tracy, didn't you hear what I just said? We have 5 reservations. You can't quit. I need you. I didn't say I was quitting, Tracy whispered. I just said my mother thinks I should come home. And what do you think? Grandmother asked. You're 16 years old. Surely you have your own opinions. Yes, ma'am, of course I do. Tracy's eyes got watery, and her lower lip quivered. I wanted to leap up and defend her, perhaps throw my arms around her and protect her, but I just sat there like a nincompoop. Well? Grandmother asked, her voice softening at the sight of a tear rolling down Tracy's cheek. Will you stay and help me? Tracy wiped her eyes with her hands. I'll stay, she said. As long as the ghosts don't come back. If I hadn't felt so sorry for her, I would have reminded her of what she'd said before she did her Nancy Drew act in the Grove. I'm not afraid of anything. I don't expect any more manifestations, Grandmother said. Not with that lunatic and her crazy companion out of the picture. Do you really think Mr. Coakley and Miss Duval faked the whole thing? Tracy asked. I don't know how they did it, but I'm sure they were responsible. I glanced at Corey. She sat quietly poking her salad this way and that in an effort to make it look as if she'd eaten some of it. She'd been so quiet all day that I was beginning to worry about her. I hope you're right, Mrs. Donovan. Tracy's eyes returned to the corners of the room as if she'd just glimpsed something moving in the shadows. A man who wears a ponytail and drives around in a hearse is simply not to be trusted. Grandmother ate the last of her sandwich and got to her feet. Neither is a woman over 20 who polishes her hair, her nails black, pierces her nose, and heaven knows what else, and claims to have psychic powers. With that, she left the dining room, her faded denim skirt swinging. Tracy sat down at our table and rested her chin on her hands. If your grandmother didn't need me, I'd leave right now. She tried to pour herself a glass of water, but this time it slopped all over the table. Clumsy, someone whispered. What did you say? Tracy turned to me. I didn't say anything. Clumsy, sloppy girl. Tracy jumped and whirled around, trying to see who'd spoken. Her apron slid to the floor, its strings untied, and the same giggling we'd heard last night rippled around the room. Here and there a cloth slithered off the table, forks, spoons, and knives rose into the air, and napkins whirled like eddies of leaves on a windy day. China plates and cups smashed against the walls. Ketchup bottles spurted like erupted arteries and splattered tables and carpets. The 3 of us cowered together, our flesh pinched, our hair pulled, our faces slapped by invisible hands, and we screamed. With a bellow of rage, Miss Brewster barreled into the room, her chest heaving. Behave, bad ones, behave! She screamed. It's not us, I yelled. We didn't do anything. But it wasn't us Miss Brewster was looking at. Her eyes were focused on the swinging chandelier. Stop it this minute! Behind her, a pitcher of water rose from a table, sailed through the air, and dumped itself on the old woman's head. The giggles changed into wild laughter. A cold draft swirled around us, giving us a few last pinches. Something swept out of the room. Tracy ran to Mrs. Brewster and began drying her with a tablecloth. Are you all right? Mrs. Brewster pushed Tracy aside and surveyed the dining room. One of you fetch Mr. Brewster, she said. Tell him it's worse than before. As I ran out of the room to find Mr. Brewster, I bumped into Grandmother rushing into the room. No, she cried. I don't believe this. I want my mother, Tracy wailed. Leaving them to settle things, I dashed out the back door and began searching for Mr. Brewster. I found him weeding the vegetable garden. Mrs. Brewster sent me to get you, I shouted. She says it's worse than before. The old man dropped the hoe and came running. He didn't ask for an explanation. He knew. So they done all this, he said gloomily, taking in the dining room, overturned chairs, linens on the floors, puddles of water, broken china, ketchup on the walls, Tracy weeping, his wife rubbing her wet hair with a tablecloth. Turning to Corey, Mr. Brewster added, You and your pranks. I hope you're satisfied, miss. Without looking at him, my sister ran out of the dining room. When I followed her, she tried to slam her door in my face, but I managed to push my way into her room. What's wrong with you? I yelled. Why won't you talk to me? Are you mad at me? I'm scared, she whispered. Just scared, that's all. She sat down on her bed and began to cry. I want to go home. I sat beside her and patted her shoulder. Don't you think I'm scared too? Let's go home. No. My chest was so tight with fear, I thought I was having a heart attack. We started this and we have to finish it. Corey raised her head and looked at me with teary eyes. But how do we do that? They're ghosts, I said. They must be here for a reason, unfinished business or something. The Brewsters, they know more than they're saying, Corey muttered. As she spoke, I glanced out the window and saw Mrs. Brewster walking slowly across the grass towards the barn. Her hair and dress were still wet from the pitcher of water. She looked tired. While I watched, she vanished behind the hedge. I wonder where she's going, I said. Corey perked up. Let's follow her. We ran across the lawn and peeked through the hedge. Mrs. Brewster was standing in the weeds, staring down at the numbered stones. It's too bad. That's what it is, she said softly. You ought to be sleeping peacefully. All of you. As she spoke, shadows stirred among the stones and whispered in the grass. That boy and girl are bad ones, she muttered, full of pranks and mischief, just like you. She cocked her head like a robin listening for a worm to turn in the earth. No, it ain't punishment they need, she said, no more than you needed it. She cocked her head again, listening hard to the rustle in the weeds, and then looked up straight at her hiding place. Come out from there. Didn't nobody teach you manners? Corey and I stepped through a gap in the hedge. A cloud drifted across the sun and turned the day cold. Who are you talking to? I whispered. Nobody. Mrs. Brewster frowned at Corey and me, her face grim. You were talking to them. Corey's voice shook. They're here. I can feel them all around us, watching, listening. Hoping to calm her, I took my sister's hand, but she snatched it away. Tell us who they are, she cried. Tell us what they want. Tell them we're sorry. Tell them. Sorry can't change nothing, Mrs. Brewster interrupted. It's got to run its course now. But can't you just tell us who they are? I asked. I can't, Mrs. Brewster said. But maybe they will. With that, she pushed past us and strode towards the inn. Even her shadow looked angry. For a moment, I thought Corey was going to run after her and keep begging for answers, but she stayed where she was, head down, staring at the numbered stones. Come on. I reached for her hand again. Let's go back to the inn. The cloud had moved past the sun, and the day was hot again, thick with humidity and buzzing, biting bugs. Corey watched a butterfly drift from one stone to the next, pausing to fan its wings. I never really believed in ghosts before, she said. Me either. As I spoke, a pebble hit my cheek, then another, and suddenly the air was full of pebbles, striking Corey and me, but too small to do more than sting. At the same moment, the giggling started, and the whispers. Corey and I ran towards the hedge, pebbles flying after us, but before we reached it, a shadow detached itself from the deep shade and blocked our path. Corey covered her face with her hands, but I stared into the darkness so hard my eyes stung. Someone was there, but I couldn't see more than a vague shape. Who are you? I whispered. Who are you? It whispered back, coming a little closer. What do you want? What do you want? Stop copying me! Stop copying me! It yelled in a shaky voice just like mine. Stop copying me! Stop, stop! Laughter erupted all around us. A hand pulled my hair so hard I saw strands floating away. Corey cried out in pain and stumbled backward, holding her cheek, the skin red from a slap. You'd better be scared, someone whispered. We're the bad ones, the lovely bad ones, the bad, bad, bad ones. Corey and I ran, but we couldn't escape the laughter or the pinches, slaps, and yanks at our hair. It was like being chased by a swarm of stinging hornets, only worse. When hornets sting you, you know what they are. You can see them. Somewhere near the grove, our pursuers gave up and let us escape. But we kept running until we reached the inn and stumbled through the kitchen door. Mrs. Brewster looked up from the kitchen. Mrs. Brewster looked up from the chicken she was preparing and scowled. Before she could say a word, we rushed past her and headed for the library, neither of us wanting another scolding.